Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Matt.
Welcome to the DMZ, everybody.
Uh, Thursday, December 14th, last night of Hanukkah. I'm sure you've had a wonderful Hanukkah season in West Virginia, Matt.
Oh, it's if there's any place that you want to celebrate Hanukkah, it is in West Virginia. It is nothing but menorahs.
How far?
No,
Where's the closest temple to you, Matt?
that I could not tell you. We do have a Catholic church, though. I'll have you know
That's
here
not
in
the same thing.
Charles. I know it's very different. I have to say, I have a friend who is uh, business owner of a sort of like a store, and she confided in my wife, questioning whether they were going to put up a menorah, whether they felt safe
Yeah.
doing it. So it's reached out. This whole thing has reached out here to southern western DMZ.
Are there,
Sadly,
are there a lot of demands for ceasefire in West Virginia?
no. I mean, obviously, this is a very red place. I would say very pro-Israel by and large. But we're near Shepherd College, Shepherd University, where I matriculated. And so it's a college town. I would say there's a very small population of campus radicals, like a handful. So I think the concerns out here are probably overwrought, but in other places, Bill, maybe not.
Uh, so so what do you want to talk about? If not,
Well, no, I think we just have to. And by the way, I love the sweater.
thank you.
This
These
is warming
are
up.
comments.
Next week we will don our gay apparel, and we will be decked out in Christmas. This week we did promise to do Christmas movies, Bill, last week, and I think we should start there. And there's hundreds of these, millions, who knows how many Christmas movies exist, and some of them aren't even, let's be honest, aren't even really Christmas movies. They just take place at Christmas. But why don't we just give our three favorites, and they don't have to be the best, but just if you haven't seen these movies, here's what we like and why. Bill, I'll let you start.
I think I don't have like a deep reservoir of Christmas movies that I've immersed myself in and treasure. I mean, I've like there's certain Christmas Story, Scrooge. Those are the '80s ones I felt most affinity to, and more recently the Will Ferrell's Elf and Spirited. I find I can watch Elf over and over again, and
Yeah,
I saw Spirited twice last year, but I would definitely make that a regular in the Christmas repertoire. But
yeah, I watch Elf every year. Have already seen it. You're solid. So what are your three then?
well, I guess I have four. I'm
Okay.
expanding. Christmas Story, Scrooged, Elf, Spirited.
Okay. So I think a theme for you would be these tend to be comedies, right?
Oh yeah. Well, why would you want to watch some downer on Christmas?
And did you say Die Hard? Was that on your list?
I would say. I mean, if we're gonna expand the lens to quasi Christmas films, obviously Die Hard's a classic.
All right. So I'm going totally different direction with my three. And I think we could agree those are good movies. I like all of them. But my three are a little different. And I'll do them in order, or actually the reverse order. I'm going to start with number three, the Bill Murray Christmas. And by the way, so once we're talking about Murray, have you seen? Forget Bill Murray. Have you seen how Murray saved Christmas? It's a cartoon.
I have not seen that.
All right, I'm going to recommend this as sort of my four then. So, How Murray Saved Christmas. It's a cartoon featuring a lot of famous voices, including Jerry Stiller, I believe, is Murray. And it's very funny. I think it debuted on NBC 10 or 15 years ago. Highly recommend it. Maybe not entirely appropriate for the kids, but I show it to my kids. Then I'm going to go to the Bill Murray Christmas, which is available on Netflix.
That's a special, right? Not a movie.
I consider it a movie because it's probably about 90 minutes long, about the length of a movie. But it's hard to categorize. I don't think it was ever at the theater per se, but it's on Netflix. I'm calling it a movie, and I like it. And it's basically the conceit is that Bill Murray is supposed to put on a show at the Carlisle in New York. And it's going to be like a Christmas Eve show, and like Amy Poehler's his agent. It's a lot of, a lot of cameos. And there's a blizzard. He gets stuck at the Carlisle, and then he and Paul Schaefer go drinking, and it's a musical. So there's a lot of they even do "Baby It's Cold Outside," which I know, Bill's your favorite Christmas song. Number 2, I'm going with "The Man Who Invented Christmas." Have you seen this one, Bill? Okay, so this is the story of Charles Dickens writing A Christmas Carol. And I would say if you are a writer, you'll love this movie because it's very much the process of like a writer. He's like he's spending all this money. He's going broke. He's got a deadline, this tight deadline. The book has to be out by Christmas. And as he's writing, the characters will appear and start, the whole sort of trope about the characters write themselves. It actually happens to Dickens in this story. And you may wonder, like, how is it that a quintessential Christmas movie or Christmas book, Christmas story is about ghosts? And so it touches on that tradition coming, I guess, from Ireland, maybe.
And as far as you know, it's roughly factual.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's very. I mean, obviously there are some artistic, liberties taken, but it's very much hews to Dickens' true story. I highly recommend it, and I say it's sweet, romantic, uplifting. And speaking of which, my last movie, and you're going to mock me for this one, Bill, because it's a layup, but it's A Wonderful Life, and I just showed it to my soon-to-be 13-year-old. Now, every year I will show them the last 30, 40 minutes of this movie, with Auld Lang Syne or whatever that song is, and uh, every time the bell rings, the angel gets his wings. I show them that part, but this year, for the first time, and this is a long movie, Bill, but there's a reason it's a classic. I've seen it twice this year. First time, the colorized version, which I do not recommend. See the black and white. That's what I watch with my oldest boy, Burke. And every time, better than you think it is. I'm always learning new things, picking up on new things. And what do you want, Mary? Do you want the moon? I could even do a Jimmy Stewart impersonation now.
Have you seen the SNL Dana Carvey, Jimmy Stewart, It's a Wonderful Life sketch?
I have not.
Oh, really?
But what I have seen is I remember the famous Reagan, the famous SNL Reagan skit where Reagan is sort of Machiavellian. I remember that.
That's one of the greatest sketches of all time.
Yeah, and Jimmy Stewart makes it. Well, Dana Carvey, I think, as Jimmy Stewart. You've changed, Dutch. Yeah. You son of a bitch.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that part.
Well, I do, but I can't remember if Dana did the Reagan sketch first or the It's a Wonderful Life sketch first. But that's even more of a celebration of Jimmy Stewart. The It's a Wonderful Life sketch. I'll send you that clip. What I do on Christmas or around Christmas is try to go back and find all the great Christmas TV episodes. So there's several great 30 Rock Christmas episodes. There's several great The Office Christmas episodes. So I'm still sort of going back in the archives and trying to find the best ones.
Yeah, it's not like WKRP where we know that is the best Thanksgiving movie,
right?
Or TV show. I'm just going to admit I'm a little out of it. I'm trying to drink coffee to compensate. It's been a crazy holiday season. There has been some cheer, some merriment already. Not already today. It's 9:30, but a little sticking with me. But yeah, if you had to choose at this point, Bill, is there? Forget The Office. That's the 90s. 30 Rock. That's the 2000s. Or The Office and 30 Rock. They're 21st century. From our era, Bill, the 80s. What? Is there a Christmas show?
The first Simpsons. The first Simpsons Christmas.
The very first Simpsons episode. Yeah. Santa's Little Helper.
Right.
Yeah. It's good. Well, you know what people should do, Bill? You see me drinking my coffee here.
Yeah.
out of the Matt Lewis in the News Cup.
Yeah.
This would be a great time of year if they like what we do here. They should help us keep the pirate ship afloat. You can go to patreon.com/Bill Scher and patreon.com/Matt Lewis. And right now, Bill, I have a special tier that I have created because Christmas is nothing if it's not commercialization. Let's go ahead and go full circle here. I will send you a signed copy of Filthy Rich Politicians and Too Dumb to Fail. That's my new
Wow.
tier. It's
That is a deal.
it's a hell of a deal, and I will try to get it to you by Christmas. I'll even make it out to whoever. Maybe it's a gift. So check that out, patreon.com.
All right, you
All right,
ready to
good show, Bill.
get real business?
Good show. All right, I got to. As Barack Obama said, I have a Christmas party to attend to. I'm going to let Bill Clinton take over at this point.
What's on your mind, Matt?
Well, let's start with news that did not make me look great this week, and that is news that Donald Trump is up in the polls. Right?
You really thought Nikki Haley was going to make the comeback? Were you really banking on that? That wasn't
Well,
just
I think I said,
purposes.
I think I said she had an 80% chance, Bill. But no, I think I said the opposite, right? Trump had an 80% chance. Well, whatever was, mistakes were made.
Aren't you going to hang your hopes on the Chris Sununu endorsement? Isn't that the game changer, Matt?
I still believe. I don't know. I'm in a weird mood today, Bill, but I still believe that Nikki Haley wins New Hampshire.
Really?
But I think Trump will win Iowa. And who knows what that means. But, it seems likely, right? He's now over 50% in Iowa. And so if you were holding out hope that miraculously all the people who weren't voting for Trump would caucus for one other person, be it DeSantis or whomever, it wouldn't matter according to the polls.
So we have a Trafalgar poll, everyone's favorite pollster, Trafalgar, in New Hampshire, December 9th to December 11th. So yes, just before the Sununu endorsement. Trump 45, Haley 18, Christie 14, DeSantis 11, Ramaswamy 10. Which, again, I know Trafalgar is not the greatest, but it really isn't all that different from the Monmouth Washington Post poll that was taken the month prior. I mean, slight differences, but roughly the same. So, I heard Chris Christie was asking it again, are you going to drop out now that Sununu is back to Haley? And Christie said, of course not. That's not how these things work. And Christie didn't say this, but the logic of him doing that is, you are making it harder for Haley to consolidate the anti-Trump vote. But Christie plus Haley in this poll gets you to 32. There's no argument that all of the DeSantis votes and the Ramaswamy votes, which in this poll total 21%, they wouldn't all go to Haley if they dropped out. We know from the Des Moines Register poll of Iowa caucus goers that a lot of the DeSantis voters in Iowa, their second choice is Trump, not Haley. So Haley is just not in a position to win New Hampshire without Trump somehow losing support. It's not just going to be because she consolidates anti-Trump vote. People have to stop wanting to vote for Trump. And I'm trying to be a broken record from past shows.
Yeah.
Like, things happen in the final couple of weeks in these races sometimes. But usually it's because some development occurs. Some external factor happens that shifts people's minds because a fresh attack gets launched. That I didn't know this about this person. Oh, this is making me question my previous sympathies. How does this happen to Donald Trump with everything that has already happened, already baked into the cake? That is the thing that I don't see anybody getting their heads around.
All right. So because we have extensively had this discussion 2 weeks in a row, 3 weeks now, although not extensively yet, I'm going to propose we table this for now.
Okay.
But I wanted to bring it up because I didn't want to duck it. I didn't want to dodge it. We should move on. I want to say one thing that you and I didn't prep at all. Did you see that the Washington Capitals and the Wizards are moving very close to where I used to live,
Mhm.
Potomac Yard, um, in Alexandria, Virginia,
Yeah,
from downtown DC? They were in Chinatown Gallery Place area
yeah.
for 20 years or something, 15, 20 years, something like that. Um, I don't know if you have thoughts. I just want to say, kind of on the record, I think this is potentially very bad for Washington D.C. And the down and that downtown had really revitalized. I mean, I feel like I kind of feel guilty that I never lived in D.C. I always lived in Northern Virginia or Maryland, but I feel guilty that, like, when I was working in downtown D.C., I picked the best possible time when it was, and now I am really concerned that DC is heading in the wrong direction.
I mean, I don't. Yeah, I haven't lived in DC in a long time. When I lived there was before that arena was even open. I mean, is the issue that people aren't going to the games, or are people going to the games and it's a very vibrant area so it's going to be a real detriment? It's going to feel different without them being there.
I think that's what it is. I mean, we already have people fleeing. I think due to COVID, people started working from home. I mean, I talked to a friend of mine yesterday, who is in the journalism business. His outlet during COVID moved to an office building on, I won't say exactly where it is, but I'm talking like prime real estate downtown, the place you would have wanted to be 5 years ago. And he's like, "Oh yeah, no one ever goes there. I never go there anymore. Everyone works from home now." And what happens is, if you read Bowling Alone, or all these kind of books about sociology and new urbanism and things, and like what makes areas safe partly is people are there walking around, like business people, and they don't leave at the end of the day and go home. They're there at night too. They live there. Kind of, and we could talk about, the dangers of gentrification or whatever, but like having these cities be places that people want to go to concerts, go to a Caps game, go to a Wizards game. Then you go out to, like, Jose Andres must have 3 or 4 restaurants within walking distance of the Wizards and Caps where they play. What will happen to those restaurants? DC's already had this exodus of people in the last 5 years, I think, due to COVID and other and protests and things like that. I don't think this is a great. This is not great. And again, I don't have a dog in this fight. Like, but this seems like a bad omen.
Well, I mean, I think it's the challenge for cities across the country because there already was a move away from uh, getting out of your house and going and having experiences because of the internet and being able to order food at home and stream movies and all that kind of thing. And the pandemic accelerated that trend, and now everyone's even more sedentary than they were before, and that is definitely undermining downtown economies across the country. And so cities have to be creative about what can we do. It's like they're social planners. What can we do to like have fun things downtown that will bolster our local business community and keep economic activity going? And so all that money doesn't just get
Yeah.
sucked up by Amazon and DoorDash and whatnot. I think there was an argument 10 or so years ago that sports stadiums were boondoggles. This is just throwing money, good money after bad. They don't change the downtown economies. They're just giveaways to rich owners. And so you shouldn't bend over backwards for it. I'm not in a position to know if there's fresh research on the subject. I would like to see fresh research
Yeah.
because we know. I mean, San Francisco is a particularly acute example where Silicon Valley is just everyone's working remotely in Silicon Valley now, and commercial real estate has just collapsed in the downtown area. And the mayor is openly talking about we have to start brainstorming how we imagine our downtowns differently to deal with this this reality. Uh, I would think sports teams downtown, it's something that's got to be part of that. Even if it
Yeah.
wasn't a huge economic driver before, it's one of the last best things. I mean, this is just my intuitive sense, not backed up by data as of yet, but I would like to see people digging into that question.
Well, look, and I'm willing to believe that a lot of these sports stadiums are boondoggles and giveaways. But you have to understand when it comes to the Caps and the Wizards, where they play was literally embedded into this Gallery Place Chinatown community. This is in the heart of Washington, D.C. It's very, you can easily metro there, you can easily cab there, you could walk there if you were downtown on a nice day. Um, so it was it was something for people to do. It created foot traffic. You could walk right next door. There's a big Clyde's restaurant, which is kind of a nice local chain in the Washington D.C. area. Clyde, Clyde. I think they also own the Old Ebbitt Grill. I think it's the same people. There's like a bowling alley right there that I've been to like a Christmas party at. It's kind of one of those cool. Like this isn't like get in your car and drive out to New Jersey to go watch the Giants play or something. This is like in your community, in your neighborhood, walkable. And then you have people coming in, spending money there as well. So I think there are intangible benefits. I think that there's the financial benefit of attracting tourists and visitors who are going to go to restaurants and bars. But I also think there's something to be said for just having the energy and the excitement and the foot traffic that's going to be missing. So, I mean, DC's got a crime problem right now, Bill. I was inside CNN. This is maybe 4 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago. I was inside CNN while I was on TV. Someone attempted to carjack my driver and he got away. But when I came out, there were like 2 or 3 police cars there interviewing my driver. Like, this is, and it's only gotten worse. And I feel like I was kind
I
of
lived in D.C. when Marion Barry was mayor, so you're not going to shock me with D.C. crime stories. You guys, I'm sure, have it like a million times better.
no, but
Yeah,
as Mayor Marion Barry put it, DC may be that murder capital, but back then they weren't killing strangers. It was like literally Mayor Barry made this point that like these were gangs killing each other. They weren't going after tourists.
I don't know
For what it's worth.
strengthening the case. Speaking of high crimes, I hear Joe Biden's getting impeached.
That's what I wanted to talk about. Maybe that'll be the headline of this piece, or of this video. I'm writing a piece about it, so I'm hoping. So I've already written. I wrote a column about a week ago.
Keep keep riffing, Matt. I hear you. I was trying to make sure
Okay,
I don't.
I wrote a column about a week ago where the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, whatever his name is, he had been on TV signaling that he was going to go forward with this impeachment inquiry. And at the time, I wrote a piece saying, like, the Democrats and Joe Biden should be hoping that this happens. They should be rooting for this to happen because what does Joe Biden need? Well, I think he has a coalition that is being fractured and is not enthused. And what might enthuse them? Well, it seems like, based on recent history, not even that recent, going back to Bill Clinton, that attempting to impeach a president, it's not a silver bullet that will end his presidency, but it very well could galvanize support behind him and kind of turn him into a victim. And so I do think there's an opportunity that an impeachment could be really good for Joe Biden, ironically. But what do you
This
think?
assumes he actually gets impeached. What we had yesterday was a vote for an impeachment inquiry.
Yeah.
And I think I heard Jake Tapper on CNN saying, well, if you do the inquiry, then they're going to go to impeachment. But I don't think that's necessarily true. I think you have Biden district Republicans and some other, vulnerable swing district Republicans who might have been willing to say, okay, let's stay unified on this question on the premise of we're just gathering evidence here.
Yeah.
You can't find the evidence. I can't go to my particular set of voters and say to them, this isn't a political ploy to attack Biden in an election year. You don't have the evidence now. If you don't get it, you don't get my vote for an actual impeachment. And then the question, and if that's the case, if they don't have a hard 218 or 217 based on vacancies, does the hard right pressure Speaker Johnson to hold the vote anyway? How dare you do this inquiry? We need to have this impeachment, and you have to give us a chance to vote on it, forcing a divide in the Republican Party to be exposed to the country. So what would make the most political sense to me would be to have the inquiry linger and dribble out an occasional crumb of evidence, quote unquote, to keep the appetite of the base whetted without making this a 5 alarm fire above the fold story that could lead to the kind of backlash you're talking about.
Yeah.
But that
So they have to
requires
let it linger. They have to. They have to let it linger.
that requires the Taylor Greens of the caucus to allow the wink, wink, nod, nod to happen without them complaining. And if they won't settle for that, then the backlash isn't necessarily Biden gets impeached. The backlash is Republicans are in disarray all over again.
Um, so I've laid out my original take, which is an impeachment seems to help the person being impeached, particularly if that person needs to have his base galvanized and to be
Yeah.
defended by his team. So that would be the predictable outcome. Um, Now, I know that the way that the impeachment inquiry was written, it's very broad and it's not accusatory at all regarding Joe Biden. But I still wonder, and this is where I think, in the 90s, like I could not stand James Carville and Paul Begala. And I have to say, I've gotten to know Paul a little bit through CNN, and a nicer guy you will not find. But um, I could not stand the way that the viciousness of their spin and their attacking, like especially regarding the Monica Lewinsky trial, where they would go after anybody who was, they would try to blame Schiff and all that.
Mhm.
Biden needs someone like that. Like all of these Republicans who voted for this inquiry, they shouldn't be allowed to get off saying, "Well, we're just asking questions." That vote should have been crossing the Rubicon. And I think if Carville and Begala, circa 1994, were out there as sort of as surrogates, they wouldn't get away with it. But I have the sense that Biden cannot litigate this kind of thing rhetorically, and he doesn't have attack dogs doing that.
Well, I think he does. I think there's a whole army of people. I mean, not a
Not
singular
good.
figure like a Carville or a Begala who's tasked with it, but I think there's a whole army of Democrats in Congress, on the White House staff, on social media that are more than happy to go after Republicans who push scurrilous charges. But the problem is
They
that
need someone who's mean, Bill. Mean and vicious. They don't have that.
the bigger problem is that Biden is the president of the United States and has to actually govern, and he has giant challenges of his own that don't allow for luxury time to go taking pot shots at Republicans. He has to solve this Ukraine border security legislative puzzle first and foremost. And I apologies if this from prompting a segue into a different topic, but the article that I wrote for the Washington Monthly today, you're seeing some coverage, legitimately so, raising the prospect of Democratic fraying of their coalition if Biden uh, accepts concessions on border security to Republicans and has tough measures that restrict access to asylum, that harken back to the Trump days. But why I don't think it's getting as much attention is if that deal gets done and you have a bipartisan Ukraine aid border security package, what kind of divide does that levy on Republicans? I think this really blows up the entire logic behind America First. The whole thing that Trump and people like J.D. Vance and Taylor Greene that they push a zero-sum logic. We can't help Ukraine because we need the money here. And if you do both things at the same time with Republican help, that really undercuts the case that Trump wants to make about the entire Biden philosophy of internationalism. I'm not as convinced that on the Democratic side, I'm wading the treacherous ground, of course, because I don't speak for the Latino community. I was looking at survey data. You know what survey data I've recently seen of Latino priorities, immigration is way down on the list. Now, those things can change. Things can move up based on events. But I think my gut says it's a misnomer that this is an issue that is dominating Latino community thinking. I mean, it's not a monolith, that different people are in different circumstances. But I think Biden is actually on safer ground because there is a genuine border crisis right now. This is not 2018. This is not a manufactured, oh my goodness, the caravan is coming, when it's like, 50 people. Right now, there is an actual giant spike in migration from countries farther and farther away. And so even when Biden expands humanitarian parole for Venezuela, Haiti, Nicaragua, Cuba, that legalize a lot of that flow, then you get fresh influx from Africa and from China. America is getting its influx because America is thriving as a country because the American economy is actually really good. And so it attracts people from places where the economy is bad. And on the whole, it's not bad for America to have additional labor when labor market's tight. But there is genuine hardship on municipalities when it all comes at once and there aren't beds available. So there's an actual problem to solve that people, even in blue states, even in Latino areas, understand. That's my sense of it, which is why I think Biden can lean rightward on this and not have the same problem that I think Republicans might have if they lean the other way.
All right. Well, I just want to go back real quick to the impeachment thing.
Mm-hmm.
And circle back on that because I think the one caveat to my argument that this helps Biden would be, remember the Benghazi hearings?
Yeah.
And it was because Republicans were engaged in the Benghazi hearings, which I think was, don't get me wrong. I think it's a legitimate issue, but I thought that the hearings were, kind of performative. And politically motivated, obviously. But the one thing that came out of that, I think somehow Hillary's laptop, the existence of Huma Abedin or whatever, that story came out of the Benghazi hearing. And that story arguably elected Donald Trump due to the James Comey interference. And so it is possible that even if this is a wild goose chase, even if Biden's completely innocent, by poking around at the Hunter Biden stuff, it's possible that something's going to come out that almost accidentally could doom Joe Biden.
I mean, this is the logic that's driven Republican thinking for a long time. Go on do the witch hunt. Worst case scenario is that you level the playing field. We already know they're going to, Trump's already going to be hauled into court. We already know that. He's already indicted. But can we muddy the water so it looks like everybody does something? Everybody's got their mitts into something. There's something fishy going on with Biden here. I don't know all the goods maybe, but something's going on. You've heard the stories, right? So that's their logic. I don't think it's not ludicrous. I don't think it is a slam dunk strategy for them, but
Yeah. That's why I think
there's a clear
Democrats
logic behind it.
That's why I think Democrats should be doing a better job of making them pay. They make those Republicans, I'm putting my strategist hat on here, right? Make those all those 17 Republicans in Biden districts or whatever, make them pay. And if they do not come up with an impeachable, if they do not impeach him, then that means he's exonerated. That they, they need to be made to pay. I don't think the
We'll get to
Democrats are
that point.
capable of that.
I mean, there's no way Biden gets convicted, obviously. Either he gets impeached and they have a trial and their evidence doesn't look good in the light of day, and the Senate vote goes Biden's way, and that's the end of that. Or they can't even get an impeachment vote approved by their own conference in the House, and that looks bad for them. So it's not that well thought out a strategy if you're actually going to force a vote. I think it's a better strategy if you don't force a vote and just do a lot of drip, drip, drip stuff.
That's why they must be made to force a vote. That's why not voting means an exoneration. I'm just saying, like, if Paul Begala and James Carville or Dick Morris, who fill in your Democratic attack dog kind of George Stephanopoulos. I don't know if these guys. That's what they would do. They would find a way to drive those messages. I just don't think Biden has anyone who can do that or does it.
I don't think it's a lack of people. I go back to, again, the governing challenges. I mean, let's look at the time frame for the next few months here. In all likelihood, the presidential primaries are over on January 23rd. I grant you that it's not a certainty, but all indications are Trump wins both of those states, and that's the end of Haley and DeSantis and Christie and Ramaswamy. That's effectively wrapped up. It's all in all likelihood. Dean Phillips does not win New Hampshire or even have a great showing in New Hampshire. He's not even on the ballot in Nevada and South Carolina. So that's the end of that. And so then you have a 10-month, it's 41-week general election campaign. Now, also around this time, we have to keep the government open. I think the first deadline of the two-pronged stopgap bill, I think the first deadline is mid-January, and the next is early February. So that has to get resolved. So does it get resolved on time, or is there some type of shutdown that occurs? I don't know. But Biden will have to be involved in solving that with Speaker Johnson. And there's also going to be high urgency to get this Ukraine border deal resolved by that time. I am a fairly optimistic sort. I don't know how rocky the path will be, but I suspect they will pass something in both those areas in the early part of 2024. And then once that's past them, both those things will involve bipartisan votes. So Biden will be able to say, Washington is working. We've taken a lot of hits. We're in a very difficult, polarized time, but despite that, we're still working across the aisle to get things done for the American people. And by the way, what's Donald Trump focused on? Himself. He's playing the victim again. He's spreading scurrilous rumors about me. Meanwhile, we're governing and we're tackling, and the economy is getting better. The economy is still growing. The Fed is not raising rates anymore. The stock market is up. Again, this is all hypothetical based on what events might occur, but that strikes me as a fairly plausible beginning to the general election campaign in the late winter, early spring of next year.
I agree with all of that, but what we know is that Biden doesn't get credit for things he does.
Not yet.
And we also know you can walk and chew gum at the same time. Bill Clinton could take credit. We have got this economy humming, and I need to get back to the people's business. But those Republicans, you know what I mean? Like, you can attack people who are trying to impeach you. You can smash them in the face and also govern and pass legislation, get
Well,
things done. I don't think it's
that
mutually.
is what's going to happen, but there's a certain finite amount of news space. There's only so much time in a day for CNN, MSNBC, and Fox to do news segments. There's only so much space on a website screen. So long as you have unsettled legislative business, that crowds out space to do other types of campaign activity. And that's the space Biden is in right now. His governing challenges crowd out time to do other things.
I would, if I were Biden, I would put Sunday, I would put somebody on who says, let me tell you, there's two things that's going to happen. Those 17 Republicans who voted to impeach, who voted for this impeachment inquiry, we are going to make them famous. We are going to spend millions of dollars making sure all their constituents know that they want to impeach this president, who, by the way, has turned around this economy, who, by the way, has, all this stuff. And not only that, if the House doesn't impeach him, we are considering that an exoneration because we know that this is a wild goose chase. This is a witch hunt. This is total BS. They will not impeach him. And when they don't, that is going to be an exoneration. You heard it here first. It means he is.
That yesterday, Joe Biden's best surrogate, Hunter Biden. He got a lot of TV time laying out how Republicans were manufacturing a phony case specifically for political reasons to attack his father.
He may not be the best messenger.
Well, what did you think? What did you think of the performance?
I haven't seen it, Bill.
Well, you didn't see him on TV yesterday?
I know he did it, but to me, that's part and parcel of the issue. Now, maybe this is.
It just seemed like
I gotta tell you, I watched Morning Joe. I mean, not in its entirety. It's like on for 5 hours, but like I watched Morning Joe and I watched CNN and I watched Fox and Friends, and I know that this happened. I have not seen anything compelling. That maybe I'm just out of it. It's, I need to go.
I don't watch these shows anymore. I listen, through either my phone or my Amazon Echo. But like everything stopped when Hunter spoke. That was the breaking news, and they repeated the clip over and over all day long yesterday. At least on CNN.
Yeah, maybe this says more about me than it does about the Bidens, Bill. I was what was I doing? Oh, you know what? Yesterday, I had a whole bunch of meetings, so I'm out of touch. Maybe Biden. Maybe
they're doing your homework, Matt Lewis.
Maybe they're doing things perfectly. Maybe this is being. I would imagine that Hunter's not the best messenger, but
obviously he's a far example. But I did think, like, if you didn't know anything about Hunter Biden before, like he gave a compelling performance. He was not bad at speaking and speaking in an emotive way. But obviously,
let me ask you,
he has his difficulties.
Before we wrap it up, I want to jump back to what you were saying about actual legislation. Give me, if you would, where are we on this now?
I mean, after that filibustered, negotiations have ramped up about attaching a far more expansive border security crackdown to that package. That's where all the activity is right now. Chris Murphy has been leading the talks on the Democratic side. I think it was James Lankford on the Republican side. Joe Biden has said he's willing to make concessions. There's been some leakage of what kinds of concessions they are considering. And essentially trial balloons, and you're having some, progressives in the House complain. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus has complained, but just from my own take, I don't get a sense that has reached enough critical mass that it's spooking Biden from walking away from it. I mean, his polls on immigration are horrible, way worse. I mean, some of his best numbers are on his handling of Israel, even though that's obviously, a political challenge for him as well. But like country's kind of split on his handling of Israel, split on his handling of Ukraine. Whereas when it comes to the border, his numbers are in the 20s. So the left doesn't have a lot of leverage to say, hey, Biden, you really can't do this because it's going to hurt you. He's getting hurt. And obviously having Putin steamroll into Ukraine is not going to look good for him either. So he's got twin reasons to do this deal. And I think on the Republican side, I think there are people like Mitch McConnell who genuinely want to help Ukraine and don't want to see Trump's foreign policy vision of a America-Russia alliance carry the day. So even though I think they know it's kind of helpful to Biden, I mean, Mitch McConnell said this. Mitch McConnell said publicly, Biden should consider this because it's going to improve his position. Improve his position. That's a quote. And Biden said earlier this week, standing next to Zelensky, he quoted what had been shared, by this operation called Russia Media Monitor. They track all the Russian TV talk shows. And they had one commentator saying, well done, Republicans, for blocking that previous Ukrainian bill.
Are they blocking this because they want more money for the border, or are they blocking it just to deprive Biden of a legislative victory? Or are they blocking it because, frankly, they don't want to support Ukraine or Israel, maybe even if it means securing the border?
Of course, there's a division in the Republican Party on this. The Taylor Greens and the J.D. Vances don't want to fund Ukraine at all. But this was a unanimous blockade led by Mitch McConnell. And McConnell, we know, does want to fund Ukraine. He is making the argument, we can't do this until you add, it's not just money for the border, it's a change in asylum policy and humanitarian parole policy. If it's just money, this would be done by now, because Biden's perfectly happy to throw money at the border problem. So I think that we are going to get a deal that's going to have some very stiff border policies included that will get McConnell's support and will split the Republican caucus on this question. So you will then know how many just don't want to fund Ukraine and how many just wanted stronger border policies. But going to the Russia TV thing, you had this commentator say, well done, Republicans. That's a quote. Well done, Republicans, for blocking the bill. Biden quotes that, stay next to Zelensky, and says, if you're, and I'm not quoting Biden exactly here, but if your position is being championed by the Russians, you might want to rethink your position. So both Biden and McConnell, Biden didn't mention McConnell by name. One of the things that commentator said in reference to McConnell was, well done, Gramps. Literally said that about McConnell. And so Biden didn't twist the knife. He didn't name check McConnell. Well, but he knows what that Russian said, and McConnell knows what that Russian said. That's not what McConnell wants his legacy to be. So there's a certain cross pressure on both parties to do this. I think more for Biden, I think it's just straight. It's substantive on both sides, but for Biden, it's politically urgent. He has to win re-election. McConnell's not on the ballot in 2 years, but he doesn't want his legacy to be, I kneecap the guy who was going to save us from Putin.
But only one. It would only take one Republican to filibuster this, presumably, right? Like
you need 60.
You need 60 votes to pass it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, like, couldn't a handful of Republicans stymie this and just screw Biden and Ukraine and even McConnell?
I mean, individuals can slow things down. But if they have 60, and of course, this is not going to pass with a bare 60. This is going to have to pass. Let me rephrase. It's going to need more than 9 Republicans. It's probably going to need more like, 2025. And maybe that means you lose some Democrats on the left, and so you end up around 60 or so. But this is going to need a pretty solid block of Senate Republicans to get through this first hurdle. Then, of course, you have the House hurdle. Speaker Johnson is not part of these talks yet, and it's hard for me to be confident in how Speaker Johnson handles anything. But I do think it will be hard to say, here's a bipartisan deal that has Mitch McConnell support and Lindsey Graham support to say this is going to help us stave off Putin and help on the border. And I, Speaker Mike Johnson, are going to say, no, it's not good enough. I think that's a hard place for him to be in.
So it sounds like ultimately you're optimistic that this will pass.
Ultimately, I'm optimistic that this will pass. Yes.
You can brief me.
We probably should wrap up and get down to our real jobs.
You can brief me on what happened yesterday. We should just have these calls every day. We could take some of them. Any final thoughts, Bill, or things you want to plug?
Things I want to. One thing I want to plug that's not self-promotion. The Washington Post podcast, "The Empty Grave of Comrade Bishop," is excellent, and I it's Reagan Cold War type stuff. So you might be interested, Matt, just as a Reagan fan. It's not really a pro Reagan podcast, but it's a combination of Cold War history and true crime mystery. And I thought they handled it very, very well. Even if you disagree with parts of it, I still think it was a compelling execution of a story that I did not know very much about. Even though you probably have, Matt, some vague memory of the Grenada invasion of 1983, but didn't know a whole lot of the backstory around it. And so I learned a lot. I was entertained, and it was an emotional roller coaster. So I recommend the podcast highly.
He laughed, he cried, it became a part of him. Better than cats, says Bill Scher. Excellent. I've got no sort of charitable plugs, no non-shameless self-promotional plugs. So I will just say, follow us on Twitter at DMZ Show.
What columns did you write this week, man?
I don't know. I write 308. Go read my column about impeaching, about why you shouldn't, why Joe Biden and Democrats should be rooting for impeachment. My latest column was sort of just another column in a long series of pieces about Donald Trump and how it's crazy that he is simultaneously getting more dangerous and simultaneously going up in the polls. So if you want to be depressed, read that piece. And on that said, down note, Bill, way to go. And
I'll just add, so check out my column at the Washington Monthly today, which is why Mitch McConnell might just want to reelect Joe Biden, about this Ukraine border negotiation. I also, in my Washington Monthly newsletter from Tuesday, I talked about the disconnect between Biden's economic performance and perceptions of Biden's economic performance, and why I think the arrows are still pointed in the right direction for Biden, and things should, so long as they stay on this track, we're bound in.
They're signaling that they're going to lower interest rates.
Yeah,
in the new year.
Strong Dow Jones performance yesterday too.
Many people are saying the highest in history.
I'm just seeing across my transom, Matt, an AP headline: "The Republican leading the probe of Hunter Biden has his own shell company and complicated friends." James Comer, a millionaire farmer, boasts of being one of the largest landholders near his rural Kentucky hometown. He's meticulously documented nearly all of his land holdings on congressional financial disclosure documents, roughly 1,600 acres in all, but there are 6 acres he bought in 2015 and co-owns with a longtime campaign contributor that he is treated differently, transferring his ownership to Farm Team Properties, a shell company he owns with his wife. Not reading the whole story. I'm also seeing the DNC has jumped on this and called it a bombshell. So wow. You are seeing Democrats try to return the favor and not let this impeachment inquiry go unanswered.
So they do have attack dogs. Sadly, it wasn't in time for filthy rich politicians, but it certainly would fit. Bill, on that note, tune in next week where we will be wearing outrageous sweaters and hats and have our full-on Christmas episode. We don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but we've done movies, we've done music. I don't know what's left, but we'll have something for you.
And happy Hanukkah to you, Matt.
Happy Hanukkah. We'll see
See you
you
next
back
week.
here in the DMZ next week.
Take care.